but Kim Tae-ho knew something was wrong. The colony administrator stood at his office window, watching the peaceful mining settlement wake up to another day of work. Children played in the streets while their parents prepared for their shifts in the deep mines that made this world valuable. Dr. Park So-young was already at her laboratory checking the overnight sensor readings from the mineral extraction sites. The head scientist loved this quiet world where she could focus on her research without the noise and chaos of Earth. She had moved here 5 years ago seeking peace and found it among the gentle hills and crystal-clear lakes of this frontier world. The first sign of trouble came when the automated defense grid started beeping. Kim Tae-ho rushed to his control center and saw dots appearing on the long-range sensors. Ships were approaching the planet, and they were not broadcasting human identification codes. The colony had basic defenses meant to keep away pirates and wild animals, but nothing that could stop a real military force. The ships that emerged from hyperspace were unlike anything in the human database. They were dark purple, vessels with sharp edges and weapons that glowed with threatening energy. The largest ship was massive enough to block out part of the sun when it moved between the planet and the star. The colonists stopped their morning routines and stared up at the sky, and Fear Commander Galactic of the Vorthak Empire looked down at the human settlement from his flagship bridge. His purple skin was covered in ritual scars that marked his victories over dozens of weaker species. This would be another easy conquest. The intelligence report said humans were soft, peaceful creatures who preferred talking to fighting. Their gravity-heavy world should have made them weak, not strong. The first plasma bolts struck the colony shield generators and turned them into melting metal. The human defenses lasted exactly 37 seconds against Vorthak military weapons. The purple-skinned raiders dropped from their ships in assault pods that crashed into the settlement like meteors. Their energy weapons cut through building walls and vehicles as if they were made of paper. Kim Tae-ho activated the emergency broadcast system and sent out a distress call on all frequencies. He had never expected to use the military protocols that every colony administrator learned during training. The message went out across space carrying the identification codes that marked humans as a peaceful species, seeking humanitarian aid from any nearby vessels. Dr. Park So-young ran through the burning streets helping families reach the underground shelters that every human settlement built as standard procedure. She made it to the communication center just as the main broadcast array was taking damage. With desperate fingers, she boosted the signal power and sent another emergency message into deep space. Her voice broke as explosions echoed overhead, but she kept transmitting. The Vorthak raiders moved through the settlement like hunters enjoying an easy kill. They took their time capturing humans for their slave markets and looting anything valuable. Commander Galactic had told them to enjoy themselves. These pink-skinned creatures had no real weapons and no fighting spirit. They would break quickly under proper pressure. In the underground shelters, human families huddled together while the sounds of destruction echoed from above. Parents held their children close and whispered that help would come soon. All human colonies had emergency protocols, and surely other humans had heard their distress calls. The galaxy was full of peaceful species who helped each other during disasters. Captain Lee Do-hyun of the Human Defense Force received the transmission aboard his battlecruiser, Soul's Wrath. He was 3 systems away conducting what appeared to be routine patrol duties. His crew went completely silent as they listened to the terrified voices of their people calling for help. The captain's knuckles turned white as he gripped his command chair. The bridge of Soul's Wrath looked like any other human vessel, clean and functional with crew members who seemed more like scientists than soldiers. Lee Do-hyun himself appeared to be a mild-mannered career officer who had never seen real combat. His ship's exterior was painted in the peaceful, blue and white colors of the Human Defense Force with symbols that marked it as a vessel dedicated to protection and aid, but appearances could be very deceiving. Lee Do-hyun had been waiting for this moment for years. The Human Defense Force maintained the fiction that they were a simple peacekeeping organization, but every officer and crew member was a trained killer. Every ship in their fleet was a weapon of war disguised as a tool of diplomacy. The galaxy knew humans as gentle traders and negotiators, but they had never seen what humans were truly capable of as more distress signals arrived from other human colonies under attack. Lee Do-hyun made the decision that would change everything. He entered his personal command codes and activated Protocol 7, the military code that transformed the human defense force from peacekeepers into something far more dangerous. The message spread through hidden networks reaching battle groups scattered across human spaceships that looked like cargo haulers, suddenly revealed weapon systems that had been disguised as civilian equipment. Agricultural worlds activated military installations that had been hidden beneath farms and factories. The peaceful human merchants and diplomats across the galaxy received coded messages that told them it was time to drop their disguises. On Kepler 442b, the Vorthak raiders continued their easy conquest, unaware that they had just made the worst mistake in their species' history. They had attacked human civilians, and soon they would learn what that meant. Commander Galactic sent victory reports to his superiors, boasting about how simple it had been to crush these weak creatures. Dr. Park, So Young, managed to send one final message before the communication center was destroyed. She told any humans listening that the colony would hold out as long as possible, but they needed help desperately. Her voice was steady despite the terror around her, because she knew that humans took care of their own, no matter what the cost. The children in the underground shelters stopped crying when they heard explosions getting closer. Their parents told them stories about Earth and how humans had survived in a world where everything tried to kill them. They explained that their older brothers and sisters among the stars would come to help them, just like humans always did when their family was threatened. Captain Lee Do-hyun looked at his crew and saw the same cold anger in every face that he felt in his own heart. The Vorthak Empire thought they were attacking defenseless civilians, but they had actually declared war on the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. They just didn't know it yet. Victory had been easier than expected. The pink-skinned creatures had offered almost no resistance beyond their pathetic automated defenses. His warriors were already loading valuable prisoners onto transport ships bound for the slave markets of the Vorthak Empire. The other alien species in this sector shook their heads sadly at humanity's misfortune, but few offered to help humans. Were newcomers to galactic politics, and the Vorthak were known for their brutal efficiency. Most civilized species preferred to avoid conflicts with established military powers like the Empire. What none of them realized was that Captain Lee Do-hyun's battlecruiser was just the beginning of humanity's response. Hidden across the galaxy, human military assets began moving with the precision of a carefully planned operation that had been years in preparation. Every human vessel, cargo hauler, or research ship suddenly revealed its true nature. The merchant freighter Busan Rising had been trading peacefully in the Centauri system for 3 years. Captain Yoon Hae-jin was known as a friendly cargo pilot who always delivered her shipments on time and helped other ships in distress. But when she received the Protocol 7 activation code, everything changed. Captain Yoon Hae-jin entered her personal command sequence, and the Busan Rising began to transform. Hull plates slid away, revealing missile batteries and particle cannons that had been hidden beneath fake cargo containers. The ship's engines upgraded to military specifications, and targeting systems emerged from concealed compartments. The peaceful merchant vessel was actually a heavy destroyer disguised as civilian transport. On the agricultural world of New Jeju, farmer Choi Min-ho received an encrypted message on his personal communicator. He walked calmly to what appeared to be an ordinary grain storage facility and placed his hand on a hidden scanner. The building's walls folded back, revealing enough military equipment to outfit a small army. Choi Min-ho was not really a farmer. He was Colonel Choi Min-ho of the Human Defense Force. And New Jeju was not really an agricultural world. It was a hidden military supply depot disguised as a peaceful farming community. Every tractor was actually a disguised tank, and every irrigation system was an underground bunker filled with weapons and ammunition within. Hours the farming equipment had been distributed to every human settlement in the sector. The colonists who received these supplies knew exactly how to use them. Every human civilian learned basic military training as children, and every human world maintained hidden weapon caches for exactly this kind of emergency. The Galactic Trade Federation intercepted some of these communications and grew confused. The peaceful humans appeared to be speaking in military codes that suggested a level of organization that should not exist. Ambassador Kang Ji-won, humanities representative to the Federation, maintained her diplomatic smile while secretly coordinating with military commanders across human space. Ambassador Kang Ji-won had spent 5 years building relationships with alien diplomats and gathering intelligence about every major species in the galaxy. They saw her as a naive newcomer, eager to learn about galactic politics, but she was actually a military intelligence officer, mapping their weaknesses and studying their capabilities. Lieutenant Commander Song Yoon-ji led a squadron of fighters that suddenly appeared from what aliens thought was an empty asteroid field. Her pilots had been hiding in dead space for months, living in conditions that would kill most alien species, and waiting for exactly this moment. Their ships looked like mining equipment, but they were actually advanced interceptors designed for deep space combat. The Human Defense Force had been preparing for galactic warfare since before they left Earth. Every human knew that space was dangerous and that peaceful species rarely survived first contact with aggressive civilizations. So they had created the greatest deception in galactic history making. Everyone believed they were gentle traders while actually building the most advanced military force in known space. Captain Lee Do-hyun's task force began moving toward Kepler 442b at maximum speed. His ships broadcast civilian identification codes and appeared to be a simple rescue mission. But every vessel in the formation was a weapon of war crewed by soldiers who had trained for this moment their entire lives. The first Vorthak patrol to encounter a human military vessel sent a confused report back to their fleet. The human ship did not surrender or try to negotiate. Instead, it charged directly at superior numbers while broadcasting what sounded like ancient Earth war songs. The patrol ship's final transmission was a scream of terror as human weapons tore through their shields. These weapons had been designed for warfare in hell worlds where every creature was a potential threat. They were built to punch through the armor of Earth's most dangerous predators and against alien ships designed for intimidation rather than actual combat. They were devastatingly effective. Commander Galactic received the first reports of human ships approaching his position and laughed. The intelligence data said humans were pacifists who avoided violence whenever possible. A few rescue ships would not threaten his entire invasion fleet. He ordered his warriors to prepare the human prisoners for immediate transport. Dr. Park So-young and the other survivors in the underground shelters received a message that changed everything. A calm voice spoke through their emergency communicators saying, "This is Admiral Park Jin-woo of the Soul's Wrath. Keep your heads down. We are coming to get you." The human colonists looked at each other with new hope. They had sent out calls for mercy and rescue, but something very different was approaching their world. The children stopped crying, and the adults began checking their emergency weapon supplies. Every human settlement maintained military equipment for exactly this situation, high above the planet. Captain Lee Do-hyun studied the tactical situation with cold professional interest. The Vorthak had made several critical errors. They had not established proper orbital defenses. They had concentrated their forces on the surface, and they had no idea what they were actually facing. The Human Defense Force was about to teach the galaxy a very important lesson: attack human civilians and face the wrath of an entire species that had evolved to be the ultimate predators. But first they had to rescue their people, and that meant removing every Vorthak warrior from the system permanently. Moving in perfect formation, the Soul's Wrath led 7 other vessels that appeared to be standard Human Defense Force ships, painted in peaceful, blue and white with humanitarian mission symbols clearly visible on their hulls. Commander Galactic detected the approaching human ships on his sensors and felt amusement rather than concern. 8 lightly armed vessels against his entire invasion, fleet of 47 warships. The humans were either very brave or very stupid. He ordered his ships to prepare for what would be a brief and entertaining battle. The human fleet did not broadcast surrender demands or attempt to negotiate. They simply opened fire at maximum weapons range with a precision that shocked every Vorthak officer who witnessed it. The Soul's Wrath launched missiles that moved faster than anything in the Vorthak database and struck with the force of small nuclear weapons captain. Yoon Hae-jin's converted merchant vessel Busan Rising revealed its true nature as a heavy destroyer. The fake cargo containers fell away, exposing weapon systems that had been designed to fight wars on multiple fronts. Her crew moved with the coordination of soldiers who had trained together for years in the harshest conditions imaginable. Lieutenant Commander Song Yoon-ji's fighter squadron emerged from the asteroid field like hunting wolves. Her pilots flew their ships with an instinctive understanding of three-dimensional combat that came from growing up on a world where everything tried to kill you. The Vorthak pilots found themselves outmatched by humans who treated space combat like a natural extension of their predatory instincts. On the planet's surface, the Vorthak ground forces suddenly found themselves facing a very different kind of enemy. The human colonists, who had seemed helpless and terrified, began fighting back with weapons that appeared from hidden caches. Every farmer knew how to use military-grade equipment, and every scientist understood advanced combat tactics. Dr. Park So-young had not been cowering in fear. She had been organizing the civilian resistance using emergency protocols that every human learned during childhood. When the signal came from orbit, she led her group out of the underground shelters with weapons that could penetrate Vorthak armor. The Vorthak warriors discovered that human civilians were not the easy prey they had expected. These people fought with a desperate ferocity that reminded them of cornered wild animals. But with the tactical knowledge of trained soldiers, every human settlement was actually a potential fortress, with defensive positions and supply caches hidden throughout. The building's commander Galactic tried to use human prisoners as shields against the orbital bombardment, but he made a critical error in understanding human psychology. Dr. Nam Ki-young, who had been captured during the initial assault, activated a hidden explosive device that she had been carrying since the invasion began. Her sacrifice created a gap in the Vorthak defensive lines that allowed other prisoners to escape and join the resistance. The aliens had expected their hostages to beg for mercy, but instead they found humans who were willing to die to protect their families and communities. The space battle above the planet became a systematic slaughter. Captain Lee Do-hyun's ships moved through the Vorthak fleet like apex predators, hunting in a pack. Their weapons had been designed to fight in the hellish conditions of Earth's most dangerous environments and against ships built for intimidation, rather than actual combat. They were unstoppable. Vorthak vessels that tried to flee found themselves intercepted by Lieutenant Commander Song Yoon-ji's fighters. Her pilots pursued the retreating aliens with the same relentless determination their ancestors had used to hunt mammoth across the ice fields of prehistoric Earth. No enemy ship was allowed to escape and carry word of humanity's true nature back to their empire. The ground assault became equally one-sided. Sergeant Major Kim Hyun-soo led his Marines through the burning colony with the methodical efficiency of soldiers who had trained for urban combat in Earth's most hostile cities. The Vorthak plasma weapons that had been so effective against defenseless civilians barely scratched power armor designed to withstand volcanic environments and radioactive storms. Each human soldier moved with the fluid grace of a born predator. Their equipment was built to function in conditions that would kill most alien species, and their training had prepared them for every possible combat scenario. The Vorthak warriors who had seemed so dangerous against unarmed colonists were revealed to be poorly trained bullies who crumbled when facing real opposition. Commander Galactic found himself trapped in his command bunker as human Marines systematically eliminated his bodyguards. He had expected to face desperate refugees begging for mercy. Instead, he was confronting professional killers who moved through his defenses like they were not even there. The battle for Kepler 442b lasted exactly 4 hours and 17 minutes. When it was over, not a single Vorthak warrior remained alive. The human colonists emerged from their shelters to find their rescuers standing among the wreckage of an alien invasion force. The children who had hidden in underground bunkers now saw their older siblings from the stars keeping their promise to always protect human families. Captain Lee Do-hyun surveyed the battlefield with grim satisfaction. This had been a demonstration for any alien species who might be watching. Every Vorthak ship had been destroyed, every raider eliminated, and every human civilian rescued. The message was clear to anyone listening across the galaxy. Dr. Park So-young stood in the ruins of her laboratory looking up at the human warships in orbit. She realized that everything she thought she knew about her own species had been carefully constructed fiction. Humans were not the peaceful traders and diplomats the galaxy believed them to be. They were apex predators who had been choosing to be gentle. The rescue operation had become an extermination mission carried out with the cold efficiency of soldiers who understood exactly what they were doing. The Vorthok Empire had attacked human civilians, expecting to face helpless victims. Instead, they had encountered the most dangerous military force in the galaxy, and learned why humans had survived on a world where everything tried to kill them. As the human fleet prepared to move to the next attacked colony, Captain Lee Do-hyun sent a message to his superiors. Protocol 7 was now fully active, and the human defense force was ready to show the galaxy what humans were truly capable of. The hunt for Vorthak raiders had only just begun. Communication systems that had been monitoring the battle transmitted frantic reports to their home governments. The peaceful humans had not just defeated the Vorthak raiders, they had completely annihilated them with a level of military precision that shocked every intelligence agency in known space. Ambassador Kang Ji-won sat in the Galactic Trade Federation Council chambers, listening to alien delegates express their horror at human brutality. She maintained her diplomatic smile while reading classified reports about the systematic destruction of Vorthak forces. Her colleagues still believed she was a naive newcomer to galactic politics, but she was actually coordinating military operations across human space. The Federation's intelligence analysts struggled to understand what they had witnessed. Their databases showed humans as a gentle species that preferred negotiation to violence. They had extensive records of human aid ships rushing to help other species during natural disasters, and human diplomats working tirelessly to prevent conflicts between alien civilizations. Captain Lee Do-hyun did not pause to celebrate his victory. At Kepler 442b, his battle group immediately jumped to hyperspace, heading for the next human colony under attack. The Soul's Wrath and her escort vessels moved through space like hunting wolves following a scent trail. Every Vorthak communication they intercepted led them to another target. The Vorthak High Command called an emergency session in their capital system, trying to understand how their invasion had turned into a nightmare. Admiral Krex-Uth, the supreme military leader of the Empire, stared at tactical displays that showed the systematic destruction of his forces across human space. Every intelligence report had indicated that humans were weak, passive creatures who would surrender quickly when faced with superior firepower. The Vorthak military had conquered dozens of species using the same tactics: overwhelming force against civilian targets, followed by demands for unconditional surrender. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that appeared to have been preparing for this exact scenario. The human ships that emerged from hyperspace were not desperate rescue vessels, but advanced warships crewed by professional soldiers. The civilian populations they expected to terrorize turned out to be trained fighters with access to military-grade equipment. Dr. Lim Young-hee, a xenobiologist studying on the Neutral Research Station, Harmony Point, watched as alien civilians fled when they saw her approaching the laboratory. She had been working peacefully alongside researchers from a dozen species for 2 years, but now they looked at her with fear and suspicion. The transformation in how other species viewed humans happened almost overnight. News broadcasts across the galaxy showed footage from the Kepler 442b battle. Human soldiers moving through combat zones with fluid efficiency, their movements coordinated like a single predatory organism. These were not the clumsy, peaceful creatures that alien governments had carefully catalogued in their databases. The Zalani Republic, which had been quietly planning to annex several human agricultural worlds, suddenly withdrew their expansion fleets. The military leaders who had viewed humans as easy targets now realized they had been living alongside apex predators who were simply choosing to appear harmless. Captain Yoon Hae-jin continued her hunt through the outer systems, her converted destroyer tracking down Vorthak supply ships and communication relays. Her crew had dropped all pretense of being civilian merchants. They wore military uniforms and operated their weapon systems with the expertise of career soldiers. The Thraxian Confederacy, famous throughout the galaxy for their slave trading operations, issued emergency orders to all their ships Any vessel carrying human captives should release them immediately and avoid all contact with human space. Their military advisors had analyzed the battle reports and concluded that humanity represented an existential threat to their entire way of life. Lieutenant Commander Song Yoon-ji led her fighter squadron in attacks against Vorthak outposts that had seemed secure just days before her pilots struck with the same predatory instincts their ancestors had used to hunt dangerous creatures on prehistoric Earth. They did not just defeat their enemies, they eliminated them completely. The psychological impact of these victories spread fear through every alien military organization in the galaxy. Humans had revealed themselves to be not just another species, but the apex predators of a death world who had been hiding their true nature for years. Their peaceful behavior had been a choice, not a weakness. On New Jeju, Colonel Choi Min-ho supervised the distribution of military equipment to human settlements throughout the sector. The agricultural world had transformed overnight into a fortress planet, with defensive installations that could withstand orbital bombardment. Every farmer was now revealed to be a trained soldier, and every crop field concealed weapons emplacements. The Galactic Trade Federation tried to maintain normal diplomatic relations, but their alien members were increasingly nervous about humanity's true intentions. Ambassador Kang Ji-won continued to speak about human values like freedom and protection of civilians, but now her words carried the implicit threat of the most powerful military force in known space. Vorthak communication networks that had once coordinated their invasion now carried desperate pleas for reinforcements and reports of total defeat. System after system fell silent as human battle groups systematically eliminated every trace of the Empire's presence in their territory. The galaxy began to understand that the humans they thought they knew had been carefully constructed fiction. These were not gentle traders who happened to come from a high-gravity world. They were descendants of apex predators who had evolved to survive in conditions that would kill most alien species. Captain Lee Do-hyun received reports from across human space confirming that the deception had been perfect. Every human colony world had revealed hidden military installations. Every civilian transport had shown its true nature as a warship, and every diplomatic mission had activated its intelligence-gathering protocols. The Vorthak Empire, which had seemed so powerful just days before, was collapsing under the systematic assault of an enemy they had completely underestimated. Their invasion force, designed to conquer a peaceful species, was being destroyed by military professionals who had been preparing for exactly this kind of war. As word spread through the galactic communication networks, one message became clear too. Every alien species attack human civilians and face the wrath of creatures that had evolved to be the ultimate predators. The age of peaceful coexistence was over, and the galaxy would never be the same. Fundamentally different place. Ambassador Kang Ji-won sat in the Galactic Trade Federation Council chambers, but her position had changed dramatically. She was no longer the naive newcomer seeking friendship with established species. Now she spoke with the authority of the most powerful military force in known space. The council chamber itself had been redesigned to accommodate the new reality. Human representatives now sat at the central table instead of in the observers section. Every alien delegate understood that when Ambassador Kang Ji-won spoke of human values like freedom and protection of civilians, they were not suggestions, but commands backed by overwhelming force. Captain Lee Do-hyun had been promoted to admiral and given command of the Human Protectorate Fleet. His mission was simple: ensure that what happened to Kepler 442b never happened again to any species under human protection. The former slave trading routes were now patrolled by human warships whose crews were eager to demonstrate what happened to those who trafficked in sentient beings. The survivors of the original colony, led by Dr. Park So-young, worked to rebuild their settlement, but everything was different now. The mining operation continued under the protection of orbital defense platforms that could destroy entire fleets. The children who had hidden in underground bunkers during the Vorthak attack now grew up knowing their older siblings among the stars would always answer their calls. Throughout human space, the carefully maintained fiction had been permanently abandoned. Cargo ships displayed their weapon systems. Openly agricultural worlds revealed their military installations, and civilian crews acknowledged their military ranks. The galaxy now understood that every human vessel was potentially a warship, and every human world was a fortress. But rather than becoming conquerors, humans became protectors. They offered their strength to defend other species who had suffered under the old order of slave raiders and aggressive empires. The protection came with conditions: complete transparency about military capabilities and absolute prohibition of attacks against civilian populations. The Galactic Trade Federation established new treaties that carefully acknowledged humanity's special status as protectors. Other species lined up to request human protection, willing to accept oversight in exchange for security from the raiders and slavers who had terrorized the galaxy for centuries. Captain Yoon Hai-jin now commanded an entire sector defense fleet patrolling space lanes where slave ships had once operated freely. Her crews maintained the tradition of appearing to be merchant marines, but everyone in the galaxy knew the truth. The humans had never been the peaceful species they pretended to be. The former Vorthak territories became human protectorates, with their populations learning to live under the guidance of the species they had tried to destroy. Human administrators like Colonel Choi Min-ho helped rebuild their worlds according to principles that protected individual rights and prevented the rise of aggressive militarism. Lieutenant Commander Song Yoon-ji established flight training academies, where young pilots from dozens of species learned combat techniques developed by humans. Her students discovered that effective space combat required the kind of three-dimensional thinking that came naturally to creatures who had evolved as persistence hunters on a dangerous world. The transformation was not just military, but cultural as well. Species throughout the galaxy began to understand that the humans they had known as gentle traders and helpful neighbors were actually apex predators who had been choosing to be peaceful. That choice could be revoked at any moment for anyone who threatened the innocent. Dr. Lim Young-hee returned to her research on Harmony Point, but found that her alien colleagues now treated her with a mixture of respect and carefully controlled fear. They understood that she represented a species capable of systematic violence, but chose to use that capability only to protect others. The new galactic order was built on a simple principle that every species quickly learned to understand. Human civilians were absolutely protected, but humans would also protect the civilians of any species that asked for help. The price of that protection was accepting human oversight of military activities. Admiral Jiang Sumin's Third Fleet maintained permanent bases in the former hegemony territories, ensuring that the slave trading networks could never be rebuilt. Her dreadnoughts served as mobile symbols of human power, moving through space with the quiet confidence of apex predators who no longer needed to hide. The Thraxian Confederacy and other former slave trading empires found their territories under constant surveillance by human intelligence networks. Any attempt to resume their old activities resulted in immediate and devastating military response. The message was clear throughout the galaxy: those who preyed on the helpless would be hunted down and destroyed. Children across human space grew up learning the true history of their species. They understood that their ancestors had survived on a world where everything tried to kill them, and that this experience had made humans the most effective soldiers in the galaxy. But they also learned that strength without morality was meaningless, and that true power came from protecting those who could not protect themselves. The story of the Kepler 442b massacre became required study in military academies across the galaxy. It served as both warning and inspiration, showing how quickly a peaceful situation could turn violent, but also demonstrating that evil could be defeated by those willing to fight for justice. Ambassador Kang Ji-won concluded each Federation Council session by reading the names of human civilians who had died in the Vorthak attacks. She reminded every delegate that these people had called for help and received it, but the price of that rescue had been the revelation of humanity's true nature. The galaxy had learned the most important lesson in its history. When someone calls for help, humanity answers not with mercy ships and diplomatic protests, but with the overwhelming force of a species that evolved to be the deadliest predators in existence. The age of easy conquests was over because the Deathworlders were watching. A new distress call echoed across the galaxy from a species of peaceful crystalline beings attacked by raiders from unexplored space. The message was intercepted by a human patrol ship, and within hours task forces began moving from across human space. The response was swift, precise, and absolutely without mercy for those who threatened the innocent. The final message was clear: To anyone listening in the vast emptiness between the stars, attack the defenseless and the children of Earth will find you. They will come not as saviors or negotiators, but as the ultimate predators seeking justice, and they will never stop hunting until every threat to innocent life has been eliminated forever. Admiral Krexoth stood before the assembled military leaders of the Empire and announced that they would not accept defeat from a species of primitive mammals. They would mobilize their entire fleet and crush the human uprising before it could spread. The call went out across Vorthak space, summoning every warship and calling upon their allies in the hegemony of chains. The massive alliance of slave-trading species had dominated this sector of the galaxy for over 1,000 years. Their combined fleets numbered in the thousands of vessels, and they had never faced a threat they could not overwhelm through sheer numbers. What they did not realize was that they were giving humanity exactly what it had been preparing for since the first human ships left Earth. Admiral Jiang Su-min, commander of the Human Defense Force's Hidden Third Fleet, finally received the authorization she had been waiting for years to use. The massive nebula in the Vega system had been carefully surveyed by alien scientists for decades. They knew it contained valuable gases and rare minerals, but the radiation levels made it impossible for most species to establish permanent bases. What they did not know was that humans had been living and working inside the nebula for over 10 years. Admiral Jiang Su-min's dreadnoughts emerged from the nebula's crimson mists like ancient dragons awakening from slumber. The Third Fleet consisted of ships that had been designed specifically for extended operations in the most hostile environments imaginable. Their hulls were covered with weapon systems that could function in radiation levels that would fry most alien electronics. The Battle of the Crimson Nebula became legendary throughout the galaxy. Captain Yoon Hae-jin led her task force of converted merchant vessels against a hegemony fleet that outnumbered them 3-1. But the human ships fought with coordination that seemed almost telepathic. Their crews working together with the precision of a single organism. Every human vessel moved like an apex predator hunting in a pack. They used the nebula's natural phenomena as weapons, turning radiation storms and gravitational anomalies into tactical advantages. The alien commanders found themselves fighting an enemy that treated the hostile environment as their natural habitat. On the surface worlds that the aliens had thought were defenseless human colonies revealed their true nature. The farming communities transformed into fortress planets, with orbital defense platforms that could level continents. The peaceful settlements became military bases that had been disguised as civilian installations. Colonel Choi Min-ho, now openly wearing his military uniform, coordinated the defense of New Jeju with the same precision he had once used to manage agricultural production. His planet's defense grid could destroy entire fleets, but more importantly, it served as a supply base for human military operations throughout the sector. The psychological warfare proved even more devastating than the physical battles humanity broadcast recordings of Vorthak war crimes across the galaxy showing exactly what these so-called honorable warriors did to defenseless civilians. Then they showed what happened to those same raiders when human soldiers found them. The message was clear to every species listening: attack human civilians and face the wrath of creatures that had evolved to be the ultimate survivors. Every human soldier moved through combat zones with the fluid efficiency of born predators. Their equipment designed to function in conditions that would kill most aliens. Lieutenant Colonel Park Dong-hwan led the assault on the Vorthak homeworld, his Marines advancing through their capital city with the same relentless determination they would use to clear a dangerous predator's den on Earth. The alien civilians watched in terror as human soldiers systematically dismantled their military infrastructure. But the humans were not monsters. They were something far more dangerous. Disciplined killers with a strict moral code. They eliminated military targets and captured war criminals but never harmed non-combatants. Their precision made them more frightening than berserkers because it showed complete professional control. The hegemony of chains discovered that their traditional tactics were useless against an enemy that had prepared for galactic warfare. Their slave soldiers refused to fight creatures that seemed immune to fear, and their advanced technology proved inferior to weapons designed for death world conditions. Captain Lee Do-hyun's battle group had grown into a full fleet as more human ships dropped their civilian disguises and revealed their military capabilities. The Soul's Wrath now led over 50 vessels in systematic attacks against hegemony strongholds throughout the sector. The alien alliance began to fracture as species after species realized they were fighting a losing war. The Thraxian Confederacy withdrew their fleets and sued for peace. The Zalani Republic offered to negotiate before human forces reached their territory. Several smaller empires simply abandoned their colonies and fled to distant sectors. Admiral Jiang Su-min's Third Fleet emerged from the Vega Nebula and began the final campaign against the Vorthak homeworld system. Her dreadnoughts moved through space like mobile battle stations, each one capable of sterilizing entire planets. Their advance was methodical and unstoppable. The siege of the Vorthak capital lasted exactly 72 hours. The human fleet did not waste time with bombardments or demands for surrender. They simply eliminated every military installation on the planet and captured every government official involved in ordering attacks against human civilians. Commander Galactic was found hiding in a bunker beneath the Imperial Palace. He was brought before Admiral Jiang Su-min in chains, his purple skin pale with fear. The human admiral looked at him with the same cold interest a scientist might show when examining a dangerous but defeated specimen. The war ended not with negotiations or peace treaties, but with unconditional surrender. The Vorthak Empire ceased to exist as a political entity. Their allies in the hegemony of chains either fled to the Galactic Rim or knelt before human commanders begging for mercy. They did not deserve the galaxy's entire power structure shifted overnight. Humanity was revealed as not just another species, but as the apex predators who had been hiding among them all along. The age of easy conquests and civilian massacres was over because the Deathworlders were now actively hunting anyone who threatened the innocent. Admiral Jiang Su-min stood on the bridge of her flagship looking down at the former Vorthak capital. The city was intact, and its civilian population was safe, but every weapon and every military installation had been systematically destroyed. The message was clear to anyone watching: threaten humans and face total defeat.